Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of The Suited Shootist. We're back in my study this week, and I want to touch on something that comes up fairly often, and it's this idea of access versus concealment. And it's interesting because it pops up in a lot of places, some of which you wouldn't necessarily expect. Whenever the topics come up of deep carry or pocket carry, the less initiated are inclined to ask, well, how fast can you get that thing out? And it's not to say that it's not a valid question. Most times it's asked in good faith. Sometimes it's posed as kind of a gotcha where they kind of are just looking to dunk on the person and paint them as foolish, because the inquirer does not understand the context or benefits. However, when I say it crops up in some interesting places, I even got some comments like that on last week's video talking about the Raven Pocket Shield. And while I did previously carry a pistol on a pocket shield, the real focus of a lot of that was on kind of helping to conceal support gear, like flashlights, like pepper spray. And even still, people were asking, well, how fast can you get to it? Which kind of misses the point, because the fact of the matter is especially with tools like that, support gear, if I'm walking through a space, the pepper spray is already going to be in my hand 9 times out of 10. And if I'm carrying a light, same deal. So speed of access at that point for me is a lot less critical than just finding a convenient way to have the stuff on me so that I can put it in my hands when I need to. And again, it kind of goes back to, I've talked about it before, this over-fixation with the draw to first hit, as if that is the end-all be-all deciding factor of viability for a defensive tool. And the fact of the matter is so much focus on one aspect of performance is blinding a lot of people to the broader discussion of the other relevant factors. And because there's a lot to this. When it comes to the support gear, like I said, flashlights, pepper spray, I'm not overly concerned with how fast I can get to it, because those are tools that I generally access preemptively. Now, yes, when I took the NPE counter-robbery class with Birch, Bulkey, and Haggard, Cecil does talk about accessing, not necessarily in fight per se, but fishing the pepper spray out of a pocket during the muck process instead of just having it in hand. Again, the idea being is that you do want to at least get a sense of what that worst case scenario is going to be like. And so, not saying that it's not a factor at all. It's not necessarily the deciding factor. When it comes to pocket carry and deep carry, again, the folks that are looking at it just from a surface level think, well, it's harder to get to, so that means that it's going to be a draw to first hit, it's going to be slower. If you're a time lord or a space wizard like Rhett Newmayer, and quite frankly, even he says he's able to get folks spun up to the point where their draw times are nominally different, if at all, with deep carry versus a conventional setup. And there's merits to it, especially if you dress like I do and you tuck your shirt in. Deep carry is faster than having to untuck a shirt to access a concealed pistol. But a lot of this and a lot of the advantages on things like this are predicated on being able to access the tool sooner necessarily than just faster. And the folks that get so fixated on, well, you have to everything's got to be a speed draw, gloss over a lot. There are instances where concealment has to take priority over access for either social or professional reasons, and there could be some really serious negative fallout if you're discovered being armed. Again, I'm the prime example here. Had I been carrying deep carry, I may not have experienced the events that led me to start the channel at all. Short of that, conventional waistband, either appendix or strong side, ankle, pocket, all of that would have been found. So there are instances where concealment needs to supersede and take priority over access. There are times where access may need to supersede concealment. I would question how often that truly is for those of us that aren't carrying a gun professionally and aren't getting paid to protect somebody else. But everybody's circumstance is different. And that's the other thing that folks miss, is they have this individual perspective and worldview based on their opinions and experiences, and somehow think that that's universally applicable. And it ain't. A prime example of when, access is not going to be a priority. I left work today. I went straight to the gym, and I took my gun off when I was working out, but I had to stop by my storage locker on the way home, and I didn't feel comfortable securing I didn't really have a good way to secure the pistol in the vehicle. So I strapped my Enigma back on under my gym clothes and just kind of, went, got what I needed out of my storage locker, came home, showered, and now I'm filming this video. In that instance, literally the only reason why I had the gun on me was because it was the most secure place for it to be. So access was really not a factor in that instance. And so I want to challenge people that, again, your needs, your use case, your situation, if it means being able to get a handful of full-size duty gun with a red dot and a light on it, cool. And if you have a lifestyle where it's really not a priority or really a concern to exercise a high level of discretion, that's fantastic. But understand that there are people out there in the world whose reality doesn't mirror that. And there are those of us who are subject to a higher degree of scrutiny, either in our work environments or our social environments. And so there needs to be this balance. Here's the other big piece. I talked about it a little bit earlier in terms of the sooner, not faster, but it also comes down to what Craig Douglas talks about in terms of timing decisions. And I'm going to kind of cap this off. You've seen this clip before, but this is when I took the Green Ops EDC Combatives class up at Cliff Byerly's place at Hill Country Combatives. And so let's watch this for a second, because the reality is I could have gotten a faster draw in this circumstance, but it wouldn't have done me any good, because had I drawn the pistol before this moment, when I had a decent amount of control and standoff of both of my opponent's arms, yeah, I could have gotten to the gun faster, but it very much would have been our gun instead of my gun. And the angle doesn't show it very well, but as I go to the ground, I'm still in this thumb pectoral index, and I've got this braced, so he's not really able to get to it. I got 2 solid hits off on the guy before they called end X. So, it's one of those things where, yes, speed can matter. It's not the only thing. And the really interesting part is, once people have gotten exposed to scenario-based training where you're actually subject to resisting opposition, and once you've been exposed to training where the shoot decision has not already been made, how fast the gun comes out tends to not be the deciding factor in the outcome of the fight. I'm not saying that it can't be. I'm not saying that there are no instances where that was the case. But I'm simply saying it's not the only priority. Take a step back, look a little bit wider, and even if it doesn't make sense for you, recognize that it very well could be relevant for somebody else out there. So, to steal a line from Cecil Birch, your micro is not everybody's macro. Hope this helps. If you've had an experience where you had to balance your access and your concealment, I want to hear about it down in the comments. Aside from that, I hope everybody has a fantastic week. Stay dangerous. Stay sharp.